want to understand if we can actually qualify evolution as a scientific theory. Obviously, we're speaking about macroevolution. Can this be qualified as a scientific theory?
Well, we can take Darwin's words himself to answer that question.
We could, but we shouldn't. Darwin has been dead since 1882, 142 years ago. He published his theory in 1859, 165 years ago. A lot of work has been done in the field since then and has overturned much of what he thought. But one thing has not been successfully overturned: evolution itself. In fact, the theory describing it has become stronger and is now virtually unassailable. Many people have tried, but they have failed in two key areas. First, they have failed to prove that evolution is impossible, despite constantly claiming that. Second, they have been unable to replace it with any scientifically defensible theory, despite, again, claiming that they have. So they have resorted to lies and disinformation, and that will be glaringly obvious during this video. Hello everyone, and welcome back to The Simple Skeptic. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. When you see that little bell pop up, hit that as well, and you'll be notified every time a new video comes out. And hit the like or unlike, depending on you. And share this video with friends, relatives, or somebody you just want to pester. Dr. Marco Fasoli, the gentleman on the left of the screen, has a degree in biochemistry from the University of Cambridge. And during the next few minutes, he will be using his body of knowledge to plainly illustrate why we should not be automatically impressed by credentials, and why the appeal to authority fallacy is something we should try to avoid. When it comes to faith and the desire to secure a seat on the flight to heaven, educated people will cast aside their critical thinking capacity and begin to outright lie, in the hope that it will curry favor with their particular deity or deities.
Darwin himself said that his ideas on evolution are entirely based and totally depends on Elias' geological speculations, which have since been disproved by cutting-edge sedimentology.
I don't really care if his geological knowledge has been disproved by cutting-edge sedimentology or by reading the entrails of crows. Evolution is not dependent on geology, or whatever geological ideas and theories are currently floating around. There are many other lines of evidence that point to its certainty.
In a letter, with regards to whether it's true science or not, his theory, in a letter to Asa Gray, he wrote, quote, "I am quite conscious that my speculations run beyond the bounds of true science. It is a mere rag of an hypothesis with as many flaws and holes as sound parts." Close quotes.
For someone who has a PhD in biochemistry, he seems to fail at simple research. The phrase "beyond the bounds of true science" was in a letter to Asa Gray on the 18th of June, 1857. But the immediately following phrase that he uses, "It is a mere rag of an hypothesis with as many flaws and holes as sound parts," was in a letter to Thomas Huxley on June 2nd, 1859, almost 2 full years later. This is easily found on the website of the Darwin Correspondence Project, hosted by the University of Cambridge, which Fasoli ironically claims as his alma mater.
At least he's honest.
Now, the speculative nature of evolution, so obviously there's been about 150 to 200 years of time since Darwin published The Origins of the Species.
Nice of him to acknowledge that fact, but watch him then gloss over it as if it's not important.
And so we can also hear what others have had to say. And the fact of the matter is that there are, despite the very prevalent and dogmatic support that theory of evolution commands today amongst the scientific community, there are a leading and growing number of honest scientists.
Implying that the rest of them are dishonest and with nothing to back up the assertion that their numbers are growing. And even if they were, it still tells us nothing about actual numbers. There might be a 2% rise in the number of scientists rejecting evolution, but a 53% rise in the number of creationists who have embraced evolution. See? I can also pull numbers out of my arse.
That following 150 years of fruitless searches for evidence,
the phrase fruitless searches for evidence is creationist speak for an embarrassment of riches that we would rather not talk about. Let's just ignore it.
That would support the theory has spoken about the Darwin's theory. We have Dr. Ernst Chain, Nobel Prize-winning biochemistry, who helped develop penicillin in 1972. He called the theory of evolution, quote, a very feeble attempt to understand the development of life, close quote. In another statement he made, he said, quote, I would rather believe in fairies than in such wild speculation as Darwinian evolution, close quote. We have Louise Bonouret, professor of geology at the University of Strasbourg, say, quote, evolutionism is a fairy tale for grown-ups. This theory has helped nothing in the progress of science. It is useless, close quote. And we have Albert Fleischmann, German professor of geology, say, quote, the Darwinian theory of descent has not a single fact to confirm it in the realm of nature. It is not the result of scientific research, but purely the product of imagination, close quote. Obviously, we don't want to appeal to authority in our discussion.
Despite doing exactly that. The appeal to authority is not necessarily a fallacy, so long as the authority can prove their case, and if the proper references are given to help us confirm that. But we should also be mindful of what the late Carl Sagan said. There may be experts, but few authorities. And I will freely admit, in the interests of complete honesty, that I may have got the exact wording of the phrase incorrect, but I will maintain that the sentiment he expressed was exactly that. More informed devotees of Sagan may help me here.
But I think it's important to give a perspective on the words that Darwin himself used, but also on the words of other scientists, eminent scientists.
Sure.
That have taken a dispassionate view on the topic.
And I think this is something that's so crucial to cover because basically, I mean, it's quite shocking to be honest, because in most schools today, in this country, and even in, I mean, we have a brother here from India who was saying that in his education, in his biology textbooks, evolution was all over, was everywhere. So basically it's been
proclaimed as a fact.
It's proclaimed as a fact.
Because it is a fact. As factual as any scientific theory can be. Its veracity is more secure than the theory of gravity. But if Dr. Fasoli would like to prove me wrong, he can impress me by flapping his arms and flying. Actually, that would prove me right. But it should be obvious by now that we're not dealing with science, but belief. And Dr. Fasoli opened the door and invited us into his fantasy world, where science is what you believe, not what you can prove.
And the thing that's quite shocking is that, I mean, as these scientists have just said, there's not a single fact which backs it up.
I can see why your hair is so short. It's easier to clean after sticking your head in this sand.
So obviously there's something quite strange going on behind the scenes here.
Do I sense the beginnings of a conspiracy theory? Whatever, we're only 3.5 minutes into a 30-minute video and we've already heard enough horse shit to keep a mushroom farm operating for a year. Let's tackle the rest another time. For now, stay tuned to enjoy or weep at the ongoing series of screen captures I've gleaned from the ranks of creationists, and have a nice day.